Hello? Hey, everybody. Look at me having all tech things, camera and everything. What is this? This is amazing. I didn't hook up Instagram ahead of time. Let me do that real quick. But those of you watching the replay, hello. So glad you're here. Today we're talking about why eating healthy feels hard and what to do. And let me just put that in there for Instagram. I'm going to get us hooked up there. So if you're watching the replay, thank you for being here. Let me know, all of you who are here, let me know where you're watching from. There, almost ready to get Instagram on. Where are you watching from? Can you hear me? Is everything okay? My camera looks a little fuzzy. Let's see if I can get that a little bit better. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. There we go. Hello, Francis. Francis is here from Tennessee. So glad to see you. Who else is here? Shoot me a little message. Let me go live on Instagram. There we go. Hi, Instagram. Okay, if you guys are watching on Instagram, let me know where you're watching from. And let me bring you back here on StreamYard. There we go. How amazing is it to have an actual functioning camera? What? If you guys, I'm talking about the last live I did on Tuesday, which my camera wasn't working, and I will tell you guys the spoiler alert. What happened was, I don't know, somehow the parental controls on my computer got switched and it like turned the camera off and it wouldn't recognize on any program. So I just called Apple support and they helped me. That's amazing. Okay, Judy. Hello, Judy Osborne from, I'm not sure how to say that, but I'm going to say Tualatin, Oregon. Amazing. Yay, Jess. Hi, thank you for letting me know you can hear me and you're watching from Connecticut. Yay. Blanca, thank you, dear. On YouTube, everything sounds good. Chantal, hi, sweetheart. I'm from the Netherlands. Chantal just rejoined the family. So happy to see you. And Christina, oh, we got two folks from Oregon today. Christina's in Ashland, Oregon. I've been there before. Oregon is such a pretty state. Let's see, Instagram. Anyone on Instagram? Where are you guys watching from? Let me know in the comment section what's going on for you. Okay, so today could be, it could be really anything you want. I planned on, hey, Myra, there's my client, Myra. I'm so happy to see you. You made it. I planned on talking today. So the topic is why eating healthy feels hard and what to do. We're going to do some practical stuff. We're going to do some mindset stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I want to open it up to you guys as far as questions. This can also be a Q&A session. So if y'all have any questions, let me know. After this week, so this week we're particularly in a launch for the Eat to Live family. I haven't had a lot of people join. I know it's because I haven't really been public very much in the last year. But I'm ramping things back up. It's getting very exciting. I told you guys yesterday on Tuesday what my plans are for the two brands that I'm going to be working on. One is just a recipe one, and then one is about binge eating. And so I want you guys to know I have opened the Eat to Live family. This is my like little community where I coach, and that's the most important thing I think I do in there. I give you guys my program for learning how to end binge eating, overeating, emotional eating. And then I coach you on how to actually put that into play in your life and make that a permanent change. Okay. So the Eat to Live family is open. It's a really great way to get started with my materials. And it's open right now. Okay. We usually close it down after about 5 days of opening it up so I can start to focus on the members in there. So consider joining that. Oh my gosh, I pronounced it correctly, Tualatin. That's amazing. Very, very cool. Okay, so all right, we are going to talk about, first of all, why healthy eating is hard. So we did a challenge last week. If you guys missed out on that, that's no problem. You can actually still pick it up if you'd like. I should have that link in here, easy to get, but I forgot to do that. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is that link if you want to pick up that challenge. So I had a lot of really great comments from people about they loved the recipes. They loved how they were new and they could try something new. and I didn't really hear too much of didn't not liking any recipes. So that was a really good one. I guess those were some recipes that I had been eating the last couple months, and I threw that into the challenge. Then we did it. We did a 7-day challenge where it was about learning how to prep fairly simply. And I know, like, when it's the first time you've made a recipe or so, it takes a little bit longer than what you might be used to. But when we start getting used to doing this more, it becomes really quick to just throw stuff together, right? So we did that challenge, and now I've opened the Eat to Live family. So this is a little thing down here at the bottom. Eat to Live family. That's my little community, right? It's not on Facebook. It's my own little community of folks who are getting coached and learning how to end binge eating, end overeating, and emotional eating, and eat healthier. It's open right now if you want to join. Okay, it's only $49 a month, or I highly suggest, if you do want to join, to do the annual, because it's $490, and that's 2 months free, and also you're committing to that full year. Like, I'm gonna do this thing, right? Okay, so consider joining there. You can join right now. The reason why I suggest this is because I believe, we often don't have people in our lives who are super healthy eaters, or that we can kind of like ride on their coattails as far as how they're eating and things like that. So this is such a nice way to get involved with people who have the same goals as you: healthy eating, not being ostracized for healthy eating or losing weight or anything like that, right? Like, it's a really nice community of people, a group of people that help you out. So that's why I think it's so important. Let me look at Instagram here. No comments yet. Okay. So today, what we're going to talk about is, let me take this banner down real quick. Today, what we're going to talk about is, first of all, why healthy eating feels hard. So the first thing I want to say, and I didn't know if my iPad was going to work, so I didn't make a presentation, but I could open this up a little bit if I wanted to take some notes. Why don't I do that a little bit? I'm going to put my iPad on, and then I could write some things for you. Let me open up QuickTime, and then I've got to start a new movie recording. Get my iPad, and then I can share my screen there. Oh, it's so amazing when tech works the way it's supposed to, isn't it? Yes, the last time was kind of rough. Okay, so why healthy eating is hard. So, from my experience, I was a binge eater for a very long time, from like starting around age 12 to about age 35, 34, something like that. And you hear so many things about why losing weight or healthy eating or things like that is hard, is because, oh, well, you don't have accountability, or you don't, you need to use this new app, or you have to track your stuff, or you have to food journal, or you have to this or that. And you hear these messages a lot, and people try these things and then they fail and they think there's something wrong with them. But the problem is that those methods aren't meant to be a long-term solution. And I don't just mean like 2 years. Most people think that if they can lose the weight and keep it off for 2 years, that's like a big success. That's not a success in my eyes at all. What I think is a success is if we can do it for 40 years. That's long-term consistency, right? So I'm not interested in the fast weight loss. I'm not interested in the quick solutions kind of a thing. I'm interested in fixing this problem for good, right? You wouldn't call a plumber if you had a leak and have him just put like a piece of gum on it and be like, okay, there, no more leak. That's not what you would do. You would want him to actually fix it for good. And so we have to understand what is the root of the difficulty here, okay? So the root of the difficulty of eating healthy is, there's a lot of different things that create this. The way that our society puts food up on a pedestal socially, right? The way that the companies nowadays, when they're about profit, they are not about health. So they're adding these ingredients that make us want to eat more. I was just shopping on Sam's Club online about an hour ago, and I saw a product on there that was like, it was called addictive something, and I just was like, really? Really? That's what you're going to name your product? Like, as if the taste of the product was the only thing that mattered, right? Um, and so these products are manufactured to make us want more of them. And of course, we're going to eat more when they have all those additives and stuff. There's the social aspect of it, that our society ties food and food and love, romance, family love, it ties it all together. It's like this is going to sound dramatic, but it's like being brainwashed into thinking that they actually do go together. Um, we we believe it now. It's so we've practiced those thoughts so many times, like, oh, we're just like Pavlov's dog in a way, where that experiment where the dogs were trained to salivate at the sound of a bell. And so when we hear social event, we think, oh, yay, I'm going to get to eat that thing, the appetizers, whatever. We kind of, in a way, we don't want to eat it, but we kind of do, right? So we've tied it together with social stuff. And it can feel so hard to unwind that stuff. But the point I want to make is that here, I'm trying to illustrate this idea. So if you have a person here and in their mind, they're thinking, food is social, or food is love, right? If that's what you're thinking, then every time you get in a social situation, you're going to think that they're tied together. You're going to think that it's important to have that food. You're also going to feel sort of outsider if you don't eat the food in that particular situation. Hey, Shellen. Hey, Helen. Glad to see you, dear. From Washington, Camas, Washington. So good to see you, my dear Helen. So once we have made this connection in our brain, we start to actually believe that food is love, or food is social, and that when we go, we have to do these things, or we're going to be an outcast in that. Now, this is a very primal thing, actually, like in the brain, not wanting to be shunned from the club, so to speak, or the tribe, so to speak. So when we say, why is healthy eating hard? It's actually up here. It's actually in the thought section of our brain, right? We think lots of reasons. We think lots of different things. So as an example, I was coaching a client yesterday, and this person was terrified of going to a party this weekend because there was going to be, the food was unknown. This person didn't know what kind of appetizers are going to be there and things like that. And just thinking, oh, in these situations, I always binge, right? I always binge in these situations, which created a feeling of, honestly, the person said, what did they say? Scared to death is what they said, because it's such a pattern to go to these things and to think. So you go to them, you binge, and then you think, oh, I'm a binger, right? When what we found in the session, actually, which is the most fascinating part, this person thought that they were a binger. They thought that when they went to social situations, there was no way to not overeat, right? That's what they were thinking, because that had happened so many times in their life. So they think, oh, we'll look back, see the past. Every time I go to an event like this, I end up overeating. And we actually unwound the reasons that happened. So one of the reasons was because this person tries to use tea in order to get through the night. No calorie tea, right? Which works for a while. But as you're watching all those foods and thinking about those foods and having a relationship with those foods in your mind at that moment, like, ooh, I really like that. I really want it, but I shouldn't. I can't, right? We always say that we say that our thoughts create our feelings. So if the thought there is, I shouldn't have that feeling, or that thought could even be, I always binge when I go to these social things, at gatherings or whatever. I always binge at gatherings. I'm going to take this first one out, and we'll just do this one. So we'll say, I always binge at gatherings. Now, this person I was coaching, the feeling that they had was scared to death. And what happens when we're scared to death of something that's going to happen, right? Like, imagine if you were to go drive your car and you were scared to death to drive your car, you're not going to drive very well, right? And the not driving very well is going to look like driving is dangerous, when really the reason you didn't drive well is because you were thinking it was really scary. But how many of us have been driving for decades and driving is really boring? And like sometimes we don't even know how we got from point A to point B. We're like, wait a minute, where have I been? And you were just driving, you weren't even thinking about it. That state of mind is actually what we want when we do these kinds of things. Like, it's just a party, it's just a party. There's going to be food there. I'm going to make sure that I'm not starved when I get there. I'm going to make sure that I have some of whatever I want, but don't overeat, right? So, what we uncovered in this session was that these thoughts here, I always binge at gatherings, I'm super scared, kind of a thing. It's not actual truth that this person is a binge eater because of gatherings. Like, the gatherings are not the problem. It's the way this person is thinking about gatherings and thinking about themselves at gatherings. That's the problem. That might be like a tough thing to understand. I'll say it again. It's not the gathering that's the problem. It's the way the person thinks about how they operate at those gatherings that's creating binging. So, what we realized over the course of the session was that there's a lot of things that we can do to actually not binge. And I asked the question, have you ever been in a situation where you didn't binge at a party like this? And we find out why. And some of the reasons were because, so some techniques here: eat before you go. We talk a lot in my program about staying at nothing lower than a -4 or higher. And what I mean by that, I'm going to say on hunger scale, is if your hunger can be anywhere between 0 and -10. -10 is like the most starved you've ever been in your life. -4 is like a comfortable little bit of hunger, right? You're just starting to get hungry. You're noticing it, you need to eat. Don't ever get further than that. Don't never go to a party starved. Never go to a party hungry. It's just setting yourself up for that, right? So we noticed there's some things that she could do. Eat before you go. Don't use tea, right? To curb hunger. One of the big things that I'm working on with this client is the idea of always eating when you're hungry, right? When you get to that -3, -4, always just eating, not putting it off. Our body is equipped with what it needs in order to get us to know how much to eat and when to eat it. Like, the body is already set up with that system. It is the operating system that the body comes with, right? It knows how much to eat and it knows how to tell you. We've just gotten out of practice with listening. And so that's the point I was making about social situations, the way we think about that stuff, that food, what the food does to us, how exciting that food is, and then how we start to think that excitement is important because food is so easy to get and fast, and there can be really cheap food too. We start to think that cheap, fast, and crazy delicious are the most important things. We start to believe these things about food. And when you believe something, you're always going to act from that belief, right? Like, chocolate is important. I really need exciting, fun food. Salads are not exciting. We start to believe that it's the most important thing about food is excitement because all the food we see around us is really exciting. Or we start to believe, like, even for me personally, I remember I did work on this during COVID, and then I did work on it again this last year when I was learning more about budgeting and not spending so much and stuff. And I started realizing that I had a belief in my head, which is um, going to a restaurant, like, "Oh, I just need a break sometimes," right? That thought right there, I need a break sometimes. Um, Actually, I worked on this with Coach Lydia. I had hired her privately in the beginning of this year. And we worked on this idea here is like, I need a break sometimes, or I really like going to restaurants or whatever. And we started questioning that belief, right? And I question it going forward too, is like every time I would go to a restaurant, I'd think to myself, is this a break, right? Is this sentence really true in my head? Is this a break? And we realized, like, first of all, taking kids to a restaurant is not a break. Anyone who tells you differently is crazy, right? That's not a break. We think it's like, oh, I want someone else to cook. I don't want to have to think what's going to be in the meal. I don't want to have to do the dishes, all that kind of stuff. But what's so interesting is cooking from home and grocery shopping and all those things can be just as much of a break to you. Like now, what I do is I use the eating part as a break from working, right? I'll actually take some time to sit down and watch TV or hang out with my meal and just enjoy it or whatever. And I use that as a break. I use cooking in the morning, like getting my stuff prepped, like making a smoothie. I prepped some, here, I'll actually show you a picture of it because I was going to put it on social media soon. I had prepped some carrots and limes so I can make juice later. I made my salad. You could see in my fridge here. So I have some soup that's ready to eat. My carrots are prepped. And then up here, I have a roasted sweet potato. I'm going to make more of those muffins. And up here on top is my, I can't get the directions are making me crazy. This is my salad that's already prepped. So I took maybe about 30 minutes in the morning and prepped that stuff, got it all ready to go so that I had options in the fridge. And then lunch and dinner are already chosen. So I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat or what I'm going to put in it, right? So when we think about this stuff and we think it's so much easier to go to a restaurant, like this took me 30 minutes to do, and I'm also saving money. I'm saving my time. I can actually use my time to, for instance, if I wanted to watch a show instead of sitting at a restaurant for an hour, right? Or a half an hour, or whatever, I could watch a show instead. That would feel actually really relaxing to me. Or if I haven't gotten my exercise in, I could do that instead. So that belief that restaurants are important, I started questioning that. And I was like, wait a minute, do I want to be spending my time at a restaurant, or do I want to be spending my time doing something else? Would I rather be at home and just throw in stuff together? And because one thing I really love, I noticed that soup is a 7-minute meal start to finish. So if it's already made, it's in the fridge, warm it up on the stove. I don't have to warm it up in the microwave for it to be fast. It only takes a couple minutes to warm it up, and then I can just like wolf it down and be done. And I do this oftentimes in between coaching calls and things like that, where I just kind of eat the food to get it over with. The benefit that I get from that kind of eating is so much higher than it would be the benefit of going to a restaurant, because, you know, you are feeling good, your digestion is good, you're getting home cooked meals. So you know all the ingredients and you can limit the salt and the oil and all that, as well as your budget. And you get to use your time for whatever you want, right? Because it takes me 10 minutes to make a soup nowadays because I use my Instant Pot. And then I have meals all throughout the week ready to go. So then why is it hard to choose those? Right? That's what actually comes up, is like when you have that food made at home, why is it so hard to choose it? It is because of the way we're thinking about food. It's because of these thoughts that come in like, I need a break, or I'm really stressed and this food is going to make me feel better, or I need to be social. I need to get out of the house. I need something to make me feel better, right? It is these thoughts that cause us to actually go and eat this food and eat more than we need. Or once we've even made a food and it's in the fridge, it's the thought of, oh, I don't feel like having that. It's not going to be exciting enough, right? It's not going to be fun enough, kind of a thing. So this is actually why healthy eating is hard, is because we believe all of these thoughts that are holding us back. And so that's what we do in my coaching, is we unwind all that stuff and we make it so that you believe something else, like, I don't like going to restaurants very much, or I would rather save my money, or, I don't have to eat at a restaurant with friends in order to enjoy it, right? We can change all this stuff. And notice also that when you're thinking, like, there's a difference between going, if I said, okay, so if your belief here is food is love, right? Like, let's say you love to cook for your family or your husband or something. And so you like to make really, you know, high calorie dishes or creamy dishes or whatever, because husband likes it or whatever. So food is love. I have to cook for him, right? You can't just all of a sudden go, food isn't love, right? Because that's not a sentence that you believe yet. We have to actually, the part that actually matters is this part, is how do you get from food is love to food isn't love? You eventually want to be at food isn't love, but you can't just all of a sudden start thinking that. Or, I mean, if you could, you would already be doing it, right? You would just go to social events and it would never be a problem. But because there are intermediate steps we have to take with changing our thoughts and getting to that place of truly believing, like, I can go to a restaurant without having to eat what they're eating or whatever, that takes some deprogramming. It's like having been in a cult and you believed something for 20 years and then now you're trying to unwind that stuff. That's what it's like. It can be a tough process if you're trying to do it on your own, and that's why I coach people through it, because it's so much easier and so much faster if I can just find those thoughts that are holding you back, right? Finding whichever thoughts you are being held back by, and then I just demolish those during coaching sessions and you're all good, right? So what we noticed on this coaching session was the she was thinking, I always binge at gatherings. So she was scared. And usually that pattern is, you go to this gathering, you use whatever you can to try to avoid that food. Like, I shouldn't be eating it, right? And then you end up binging. Or you do really good at the party and then you binge on the way home. How many of us have done that? Let me know if you guys have ever done that, actually, in the comment section. If you've ever used willpower to try to get through something, right? An event or something like that, you use willpower to try to get through it. And then you're like so proud of yourself, but then you end up binging on the way home. You stop at a fast food or grocery store, or at home, you just start eating everything that's there. Oops. Yeah. So I have a yes from Sarah on Instagram here, who's done that before for sure. Oh, look at that. My phone, it came right up on my iPad. That's funny. That's a junk call, because my phone number starts with 941, and that's a Sarasota number. And so I always know that if it's a 941 number, that it's junk. That's really useful. Just never change your cell phone number. Okay. So how many of us have done that? Yeah. You kind of psych yourself out. Yeah. Jess says for sure. I've done that for sure. Yep. And I had, who said that over here on Instagram? Sarah Dunn said that on Instagram as well, that she has that experience too. I used to also, what was really interesting was I would plan with my ex many years ago to be going out to dinner on the weekends to our favorite place, Carrabba's, which is an Italian place. And I'd be thinking all day about all the stuff I wanted to eat. And then I would psych myself out ahead of time and I would binge ahead of time before I even went to the restaurant. And then, because I didn't want my ex to know at the time that I had already binged, I would eat a full meal with him. And then I would end up throwing up, out of I wasn't even able to control it, right? 3 a.m. I'd wake up so sick because of everything I ate, because it's just the way I was thinking was like, ooh, I can't not binge before I go to a restaurant, which is the silliest thing to think. I believed it because I had done it so many times. But when I started questioning, I can't binge before I go out, I started flipping that and going like, well, why do I think I can't binge before I go out? And one of the things I really noticed over time was that I was letting myself get too hungry, right? I was trying to restrict during the day so that I could eat whatever I wanted at night. The way through this, guys, so I'm going to give you sort of the practical shift for this. How would you shift your thoughts here? What we would do practically. So the work that I would do with someone on this is, for instance, with this client, what are some things that we could do so that we never get too hungry and that we always feel in control, right? So we don't go to parties hungry. Like, that would be silly, right? We don't go to social events hungry. We don't have to stuff ourselves, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We could just eat a banana or an apple or something before we go, but we don't let ourselves get past -4 or maybe even -2 or -3, right? We don't really mess with a lot of hunger when it's party day, or our grandchildren are having a birthday or something like that, and we want to have cake and we want all those appetizers and stuff, and we know that our hunger will be blunted if we eat before we go. And we're not making a big deal out of it, but we're just like, yeah, this is how I take care of myself, right? So eat before you go to that party that this client is going to. Make sure you don't get super hungry, right? Don't use tea to curb hunger, but you can drink that while you're going. And then here's the most important part, you guys. What these other steps that I use with folks that are so important, part of my program. So for sure, the hunger scale thing, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to our hunger and not eating, not getting too hungry. But also, many of us are coming from a lot of diet brain stuff, right? We're coming from a lot of do's and don'ts from other diets that we've done in the past. And so, how do we actually come out of that? One of the big things is to start to realize that we could actually eat anything we want. It's not going to kill us if we don't overeat on it, right? So we want to have mainly healthy foods, salads, smoothies, soups, vegetables, if you like lean protein, whatever, things like that. We want to have mostly that. But if we have a donut here and there, or if we have pizza here and there, it's actually not a problem health wise if we do it sporadically, right? Kind of rarely, but in a way that's controlled and in a way that's, we don't have to do it all the time. So, how do we get to that place? And we know this is true too, because even Dr. Furman's nutritarian diet allows for some off plan foods, right? It's supposed to be minimally processed and things like that, of course, but we do not have to be perfect in order to still have great health. That is a belief that has been instilled in us that we have to be perfect in order to have the best health. That's a belief that's instilled in us. So then when we know we're not doing perfectly, we do way unperfectly. We do, black or white, all or nothing, totally off track. But that middle range there is actually human, right? It's actually what we want to be striving for, is that middle range. So what I work with folks is this idea that when you go to a party like this, you go to a social function, actually plan to eat some of that food, right? Or plan to have a bite of everything, right? So um, you don't feel like deprived or restricted or anything. So a big important part of my program is to plan things, like plan ahead. Nothing fancy, nothing difficult, like, ooh, I'm going to have 1/3 of a cup of this plus this. Like, no. It's just like, I'm going to have whatever I want at the party, but I'm not going to get too full, right? I'm going to have whatever I want, but I'm not going to get too full. So if we've eaten ahead of time and blunted our hunger, and then we go to that party and we're like, okay, what is the amount here of things that I could eat that I would be satisfied because I got to try everything? And I definitely want dessert, right? But that I won't get too super stuffed. So as you're loading your plate and you're thinking like, I can have anything here, but I want to make sure I save some room for dessert. So maybe I'm going to take a smaller plate, or I'm only going to fill half the plate or whatever, so I can just have a bite of everything. And then I'll go to dessert. And dessert, if there's 4 or 5 desserts, I could just cut off a piece. My mic mutes for some reason, sometimes automatically. I don't know why. So it's like, I can have some of that dessert. I can have some of those things. And as long as I'm not stuffing myself, right? Because it's the stuffing that's actually the problem, isn't it? It's the overeating that's the problem. And if we felt very calm about our foods and we were like, I can have whatever I want, whatever I want it, but I choose to eat healthy foods most of the time. And then sometimes I choose not to eat healthy foods, but I plan it in advance. And I always keep that rule of eat when hungry, stop when full. Right? Yeah. And Jess says, yes, for sure. Oh, she said that earlier. It just came up again. I don't know why. But eat when hungry, stop when full, right? So when we go to a party like this, so back to this client I was talking about, the one who's scared to death of going to a party. If we are stuck in this belief, I always binge at gatherings, there's something wrong with me, I can't do this. And that's all we're thinking about, right? That's the whole thought process that we have about this party before, during, and after. That's what our reality is going to be. It's going to seem like we're a binge eater because we are going to overeat and all that. But if our thought pattern is more about this kind of stuff, like eating before you go, not being too hungry, having some of everything, planning on it, like when you actually plan to eat food that's like junk food or whatever, it's not as exciting. Spoiler alert, not as exciting to eat junk food when you have planned to do it and said you could, right? Now, here's why. Here's why I always tell people, this is probably the last thing I'm going to say today. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'll get to your questions, and then otherwise I'm going to head off here. The reason that I tell people that they can eat whatever they want and to get good at believing that is because you're going to eat whatever you want sometimes anyway, but you're going to binge on it, right? Now, if you could be perfect, you would not be on this call. You would just be eating perfectly. Like you'd already be doing it. It wouldn't even be a question, right? But for those of us who are not perfect, which is 100% of us, for those of us who are not perfect, we are going to end up having some of that stuff anyway, whatever that is to us, right? It's so funny because over the years, I've coached so many people, and it doesn't matter whether they're 100% nutritarian with what they eat or 100% vegan or whatever, there's still foods that people feel that they have overeaten on. Like I remember one time coaching someone who would binge on Larabars, which are literally nuts and fruit. And that would be a sense of shame for them to have binged on Larabars because they are thinking they shouldn't, right? They're thinking they shouldn't have Larabars, like they're too calorie dense or they're too this or too that or whatever. Everyone is telling you, ooh, keep your calorie density low, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Don't eat meat, don't eat salt, don't eat this, whatever. When we restrict ourselves in those ways, we're automatically going to have more. And when we go off track, we're going to eat way more than we even need, right? So can we unwind that thinking of, for instance, with a Larabars or chocolate cake or fast food or whatever? Can we just not overeat on it, right? Because the problem is the overeating. It's not the having something here and there every once in a while, right? The problem is when we binge on stuff, is when we eat way too much of it, okay? So, Blanca, this is so helpful because it makes me think and plan for what I know already, which is that my family looks forward to going out to our favorite restaurant Friday evenings. I will have to think more. Yep. So plan ahead, think ahead. And here's the thing, Blanca, this is not going to go away. Family outings, right? And also your favorite restaurant indicates that you've been there many times. You know exactly what's on the menu. You have the ability to now, and here's the thing too, is like, let's look at math for a second. So Dr. Furman says it's okay to have 5 to 10% off, foods or whatever. Now he's always saying like minimally processed, but I say, I say 5 to 10% of whatever you want. Like, let's not restrict, right? Because then that's going to allow us to be happy to have salad and things like that at other times. But let's do the math here. 10% of our meals out of a week, 7 days, 10% is 2.1 meals out of 21. That's a lot to be able to eat. That's pretty off plan, right? So what that means is we have some leeway here. We have some room. And even if you're not perfectly nutritarian, you can have even a little bit more, 20% of your meals, whatever, where you have some off stuff. You get to choose. That's the beauty, right? And the most important part to understand is that you would do it anyway. You would be eating that off-plan food anyway, but you'd be binging on it, right? Or you'd be way overeating on it, eating to the point of full or whatever. So we change that thinking to go, I can have that food because I would have it anyway. So I can have it. I would be having it anyways. I just don't want to overeat on it, right? I want to try to stay in this area just every once in a while, just a couple times a week, maybe, right? Or one thing at 5 or 6 meals, right? Like a chocolate bar afterwards or ice cream or whatever. Like maybe you do something that's sort of off plan 5 times a week, but it's not the full meal. It's just a dessert or something you add, some chips or whatever, something that you add to it, right? That way it's like I can have whatever I want. And here's what's so interesting. When we care about not overeating, and we use this method of going to, I can have whatever I want, but I'm just not going to overeat, right? I can have whatever I want, but I'm going to eat when hungry, stop when full. We learn how to do that, right? This takes some practice. We work on this in coaching and stuff like that. Whatever I want, but I'm not going to overeat it. then what automatically happens over time is when you actually truly believe it's okay to have whatever you want, instead of all the things that people tell you, like, oh, you should only have this much of this or this much of this or whatever, all those arbitrary rules that do not apply to you, because those rules are, everybody has a different body, and we all have different weights, we all have different metabolisms and different um, weaknesses and strengths inside of our bodies. This is what I mean by different bodies. So you can't possibly say that this particular meal plan is going to be right for everybody. It could be that a plant-based diet is definitely healthier and is going to allow the body to run better. Sure, great. But a plant-based diet doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, right? You can still get the benefits of a plant-based diet and not be perfect. You can have meat, you can have dairy, you can have ice cream sometimes, you can this, as long as it's kind of a small percentage. But the way that we do that is by not overeating. And then here's what's so fun. When you get really good at not overeating as your first goal, right? You can eat what you want, but you don't overeat. You start to care more about how you feel. And when you start caring more about how you feel and self-care and things like this, you start to choose more salads on purpose. You start to choose more smoothies on purpose, because those things actually feel best in your body after you've eaten them. Right? If you're conscious and you're aware and you're really like doing this work on purpose, you will notice that those things do feel better in your body. Some people might have digestive issues with beans or cruciferous things or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, in general, having more clean foods versus processed foods. You will always feel better if you eat more whole foods compared to processed foods. Okay. So as you start eating more and more of those, it becomes less interesting to eat all that other stuff, right? Okay. So, Chantal, beautiful. Really starting to focus on my health again, but this time around, I will not think of it in a black or white way. I'll allow myself to be more flexible. Yep, Chantal, that's the key. It is about being flexible. It is about unwinding those thoughts that tell us we have to do this specific thing or else, right? Okay, Francis, this is such a good, I love that you said this sentence. Francis says, it's so hard to eat just one bite of cake. Sweets are my downfall. Okay. Let's do something here. So what I'm talking about here, this idea, what we're saying is that your thoughts are creating your feelings, and your feelings are then driving your actions. Okay. So let's say, Francis, your actions are overeat sweets, right? The feeling is like bingy or cravey, right? Like you cannot have just one, no control kind of a thing. Why must we have this feeling? Why do we have this feeling? We have this feeling because you are thinking to yourself, sweets are my downfall. As if the sweets had a very specific quality to them that made you overeat them. Now, everyone is going to tell you that that's true. Yeah, sweets are addictive, right? Sugar's addictive. See the brain scans or whatever. See how your brain lights up more when you eat sugar versus a salad or whatever. Okay, cool. Like, so maybe sweets are a tiny bit more addictive. Sweets are not as addictive as we think they are. Here's where it gets crazy. Sweets, you are thinking that sweets, once you have them, you can't stop. So you're thinking you have a piece of cake in front of you and you try to just eat one and then you can't stop. Yes, absolutely. There's something that happens in our brain when we go to eat that stuff, the highly processed food, right? The brain lights up when we start to get dopamine and excitement, and then we want more and more and more. Yeah, that totally happens. I'm not saying that doesn't. But it doesn't happen as strongly as you think it does, because if we look at sort of a pie chart here, I don't actually know the numbers. I'm making this up, but there is a definite difference between the amount that sweets are actually addictive and the contribution of your negative thoughts of them. They might actually be like, I'm going to put this like chemically addictive in some way, sweets, we'll say. But also we have a story that they are our downfall, right? I'm a binger. I can't be around them. So what happens is, before you've even been around a sweet, you have a belief that there's something wrong with you, that if sweets are around you, it's a slippery slope for you, right? Now, sweets are my downfall. Sweets are a slippery slope. Okay, so when we're thinking that sweets are a slippery slope or a downfall, this is when actually no control comes in. This is why we feel out of control. If you believed, I have really good control around sweets, right? This would be the opposite thought. Then you would feel much differently about being around sweets. But because you're thinking there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with me, you're thinking that this is all of the puzzle. You're thinking that they are 100% problematic. And if you have any of them, now I'm going to prove to you that this is incorrect. Okay, Francis? So let's say you go to a party or you're home alone or something and you've got some sweets in front of you. Okay. And you're eating these sweets and you're really into this thing, but you forgot that your friend was coming over, right? And as you're eating the sweets, all of a sudden, friend rings the doorbell and you're like, oh, and you're in the middle of a sweet binge, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, my friend's here. I don't want them to see me eating like this. You would immediately pick up those sweets and put them away, wipe your mouth, chew and swallow and be done, wash your hands, whatever, and then you'd go open the door. What this proves is that your brain is powerful enough. You are strong enough to put something down at any minute and put it away. You don't even need a friend to come over and do this. You could continue binging while your friend was there. You could ignore them. You could just keep eating. You could open the door and just keep binging while they were there, but you don't, because you are powerful enough to make that choice at any moment. It's not because the friend came. It's because you thought to yourself, oh, I don't want to look this way. You didn't think to yourself, sweets were addictive. Sweets are so addictive in this moment that I can't stop. You were like, oh, this other thought's going to take over. What this proves is that those thoughts are what's actually causing you to either binge or put the candy away. And if you have the ability to do it just because of a ringing doorbell, you have the ability to do it at any moment of any day. One of the things that I really love for people to do, this is an assignment I always give people, something we learned in our life coaching school, is this idea of take the thing that you think is super addictive. Okay, you're welcome, Francis. Yep. Take the thing that you think is super addictive on purpose. Just get one of them or something, right? Have it in front of you and on purpose go to eat it. What I like for you to do, I call this, actually I made this particular exercise up myself, but what I call this is the, what did I call it? Stop in the frenzy. I think that's what I call it. Yeah, stop in the pause in the frenzy, I think is what I call it. The pause in the frenzy exercise, which is, you have that piece of thing that you think is so addictive in front of you. Get it on purpose and maybe be hungry when you go to eat it. So it feels really powerful, right? Eat it. And then the only thing that you do, there's only one thing that you do. You get to eat the whole thing, so you don't have to worry about it. This exercise, you get to eat the whole thing. But when it's in front of you, all I want you to do is take 3 bites and then pause for a minute and then keep eating. That's the whole exercise. That's it. Like set a timer on your phone, 60 seconds, and then eat the rest of it. Okay. That all I want you to do is that. If I said to you, do you think you could do that? Like it's a challenge. And I want to ask you, for folks in this group, what do you think would happen? Do you think that you would be, knowing that you could eat the rest of the food, do you think that you could pause for 1 minute, set a timer on your phone, look at the food, your mouth is watering, you're like itching to keep eating it, you really want it. Do you think you could do that, Francis? Do you think you could pause for just 60 seconds and then eat the rest of it? Do you think that would be possible? Let me know what you think. I'm going to take a drink of my smoothie while I'm waiting for you to type. Remember, you get to eat the food afterwards. Yes. So you think it's possible. Okay. So if it's possible for you to pause, it's possible for you to pick it up and put it away. Do you see that? Do you understand that? I want you to still do this exercise, because another really great thing that I want you to do during it is in the middle of that 60 seconds, I want you to see what happens to yourself physically. I'm going to tell you what happens. You already know what's going to happen. Your mouth is going to be watering like crazy. Your thoughts are going to start to go really fast and tell you, I need to eat more of this. I really want more. I want to finish it, whatever. It's going to feel super, super uncomfortable until that timer goes off, and then you get to eat the rest of it, right? Some of you, it might be a very peaceful 60 seconds because you know you get to eat it afterwards, and that's fine too. But part of this exercise is realizing that that 60 seconds will not kill you, that it's totally okay to feel that feeling, which feels very uncomfortable, and to not eat about it, right? If you're able to do it for 10 seconds, you can do it for 60, and you can also do it for 60 minutes, and you can do it for 5 days, and you can do it for whatever. What this proves is that we're actually way more powerful than we're giving ourselves credit for. So when you say, sweets are my downfall, right? If there's a sweet in front of me, I'm going to eat the rest of it. Like, it's so hard to eat just one bite of cake. The reason it's so hard to eat one bite of cake is because you're thinking cake is addictive, like 100% addictive. But if cake was addictive in the way we think it is, we would be selling our grandmother to get more cake, right? We'd be like robbing grocery stores to get more cake. Cake is not addictive like that. It's not something that you're going to throw away your life on. You might not feel as good when you eat cake in that way. Why didn't I just turn this off? I need to just put do not disturb on. You might not feel as good when you eat it and all that, but it's not addictive in the way that we think it is. And so when we think it's super addictive, when we think that there's something wrong with us, it's my downfall, we automatically feel, and I actually want to change this a little bit because it's not so much bingy or cravey. And maybe you can help me out with this one, Francis. I'm looking for an emotion that you feel when you think you're this kind of a person. Sweets are my downfall. They're a slippery slope. I have no control over those. Typically what comes up here is, what are the emotions that we feel? It's like hopeless. There's just something wrong with me. I can't fix this. This is just how I am, right? It's like someone once used the word resigned. Just like, this is who I am. I'm just, not good for your health. Absolutely. Okay. So, but when you think about yourself, like being this kind of a person who doesn't have control around food, these types of foods, that actually makes us feel pretty crappy about ourselves. Right. And what's so fascinating is when we feel crappy about ourselves, when we think we're this person, I have no control. I'm completely hopeless. Whenever I'm around cake, I cannot have one bite. When we think and feel these kinds of things, we definitely will overeat. But what's so fascinating is that it's not the sweets that are the problem. It's not the addictive quality of the sweets that are the problem. It's the way we're feeling about ourselves. That's the problem. That's what's actually making us binge. So if we thought to ourselves instead, things like, you know what? Actually, it's easy to go to social situations and not binge if I, I eat before I go. I have something, and then I never get super hungry. I have a little bit of whatever I want, and I eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full. Now that thought right there, it's pretty easy to go to social situations if I do this stuff ahead of time. Feels so different, doesn't it? It feels like, okay, yeah, it's all good. Like, whatever, this is fine. I can go to the party. It'll be fine. Instead of scared to death, now we're totally confident and calm. And we're like, yay, I get to be with my friends. I get to have a social situation, and food is not going to be the center of it, right? The more we practice this, the better and better it gets. Okay. You're so welcome, Judy. She says a powerful lesson indeed. Thank you, Sherry. You're so welcome. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Hold on. I had one from Helen I need to get back to. What strategy would allow me to be at peace without eating junky food in social settings? First of all, I would plan to eat junky food in social settings. That's the absolute first strategy that I would say. Never restrict yourself. Do not stop restricting. The restricting is what makes us overeat. It's like I'm just going to write this down so we can see it. Restriction equals, I didn't write that very well, sorry. Restriction equals overeating. Sorry, my brain is going faster than my fingers can. Restriction is what causes overeating, okay? So if we don't want to overeat, we have to not restrict. Now, I don't mean have unlimited quantities. That's not what I mean. I mean, don't restrict the foods that you're going to allow yourself to have. Because here's the thing, you would binge on those junky foods anyway, right? If you went to that social, you would either lock yourself in your house and then you end up binging in your house at some point, or you go to some event that you have to go to and you binge on it. So you're going to end up eating that food anyway. So instead of saying in your head, I can't have it, say in your head, I can, because I'm going to anyway, right? Like, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be 100% perfect all of a sudden. If you could, you'd already be doing that and we wouldn't be having this discussion, right? So the point is that you're going to have that stuff anyway. So tell yourself you can instead of telling yourself you can't. It's a very slight like thought change. And all we have to do is just practice that. So every time we get in a situation where we could eat that stuff, it's like, yes, I'm going to have it anyway. So yes, of course I can have it. Like, I'm going to have it anyway. So yeah, this is obvious. I can have it. When we start unwinding that and go, I can actually have this food. Oh, wow. It changes it so much. You go to a party, not super hungry, planning to eat some of that stuff and I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm full. I get to eat whatever I want. I'm just going to have a few bites of each thing. I'm going to have 4 desserts, but I'm going to have a little bit of each. And then when I'm full, I'm going to stop. Because guess what? All that food that's at the party, I mean, we have grocery stores, right? We can always get more of it if we want. It is not scarce. The only reason that food seems scarce to us is because we're telling ourselves we can't have it. Okay. So the plan there, Helen, never, ever, ever tell yourself not to eat junky food in social settings. Always plan to have some. I know this sounds so counterintuitive of the nutritarian diet and things like that. I get that. And this is why it's really hard for us. This is why healthy eating is so hard. The strategy is to actually allow you to have that food, because here's what happens. After you've allowed yourself to have it, after so many events and it's fine and you don't overeat on it anymore, you actually start preferring to have salad instead. It's like, for me, if I went to a family gathering and they were having like our traditional German brats and spätzles and things like that, I might want a bite or 2 of it, but to have a whole plate of that, I'd be like, oh, no thanks. I don't like how that feels in my body afterwards, right? I would so much rather have a big, huge salad and maybe like a bite of sausage, a bite of the homemade noodles or whatever that is, right? I wouldn't want to binge on it like I used to when I was telling myself I couldn't have it, right? So let's say it's like, well, what actually feels good to me? Not overeating, not stuffing, and having a salad first, making sure I'm not starved, and then I can have a little bit of it, right? Like, just for the taste, just for the flavor, whatever. And then, yeah, like, I like all of these desserts. So I'm going to have a few bites of each. It's going to end up being the size of one dessert, but I'm have just a couple bites of everything, you know? Okay. Right. So that's okay. No problem. You're welcome, Francis. And tell yourself the party food is 20% of the weekly meals that's allowed. Exactly. That's exactly it. It's that 20%. It's that 10%. It's that whatever. Like for me, for instance, I'm probably a 75, 80% nutritarian, which means 10, 20% of what I'm eating is not nutritarian. And that's fine with me. I've made peace with that, right? I'm okay with that. And what that means is it gives us some leeway. Give yourself leeway in planning because you would be eating it anyway. So now just plan to have it on purpose. You'll automatically eat less of it. Okay? You got to trust me on this. I know it all sounds very scary, but you got to trust me. This is the only way out. I know this from having been years and years and years binge eater, always out of control, trying all the point systems and apps. And oh, if I just fast or if I just do this thing really quickly or I do a challenge or whatever. Those short-term quick things will never work for 40 years. They might work for a year or 2. They will not work for 40 years. Okay. All right. That's all I got for you guys. Good deal. Okay, Francis, I'm so happy to hear it. Thank y'all for being with me today. And that's all I have. I am going to try to do these calls once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks, but I'm going to try to do them once a week once we're finished with the family launch and stuff. So I just want to remind you that the family is open, of course, and this is the type of coaching that we do in the family. Not so much me talking all the time, but me actually coaching you personally one-on-one. And I do that twice a month. So usually the calls are between an hour and 2 hours, and most people can get coached on the calls if they show up on time. And I'll give you 15, 30, 45 minutes of coaching just you specifically on that call. And what we're actually doing is we're breaking down these thoughts that are holding us back. So, like we mentioned, sweets are my downfall, whatever. I would be personally coaching you on specifically what happens in your life and how it comes up and how do we fix it. That's what we do inside of the Eat to Live family. It's actually so stupid cheap to be in there. It's only $49 a month and it's cancel anytime. So you could just join for a month and see how it goes and see how you feel. Most people will stay in between 6 and 12 months. That's why I always say join annually if you can, because you get 2 months free and you get, you actually get, like you're really making that decision and saying that I'm going to do this for myself. Eat to Live family. This is only going to be open for, tomorrow. We're closing tomorrow. So if you want to join, you got to do it now. As I said, it's $49 a month or $4.90 a year. I've had a lot of people that have done the yearly just to save that. And I've had people that have been in for we've been open for 3.5 years now, and people are still in there because this coaching is so important. We always have stuff that we can get coached on. We're feeling scared about something or worried about something or overeating or whatever, we can knock all that stuff out. Okay. So if you want to join the family, go ahead and do that. I'm going to put the link up right here again. So you go to bit.ly/join ETLF. Join Eat to Live family, join ETLF. Okay. So you can join the family that way. As I said, it could be month to month if you just want to try it out. My program, which I call the 1 pound down system, that's how we actually lose weight. If you want to lose weight, that program is in there, as well as my more expanded version of that program, which is called the Eat to Live Academy. That's in there too. I also have an advanced course, so you can learn all the things you need to learn, as well as getting coached to make sure that these things stick. We also have years worth of replays of calls that we have done in the past, of coaching calls that I've coached other people. And you can very easily search through and see what topics you're looking for. And we have free challenges in there too. So like everyone who did that 7-day challenge last week, if you were in the Eat to Live family, you didn't have to pay for it. I add those into the family as well. So there's so much in there, 49 bucks a month. It's crazy. And that link, if you go to bit.ly/join ETLF, you can join there, or you can just email me. We'll let you in. Okay, so that's it. I hope you guys join. I hope you loved this. And I'll see you hopefully next week at some point. And hopefully then I can do that on a weekly basis. All right, have a good day and have a great weekend. Okay, bye.